if you went to any event that happened at Gallipoli, meant to happen at Gallipoli, you Google it, the first 8 entries in Google will contradict each other. So firstly, we chose Les Carline's book as the truth, and then we had to interpret that in a way that we could do on a reasonably tight budget, or incredibly tight budget, and a reasonably tight schedule for TV drama. But I found ways, I guess, of trying to experientially get into what a soldier would be experiencing 100 years ago, and doing it in a way that avoided any of that fucking jingoistic, nationalistic pride that I cannot stand, and maybe to its commercial detriment, we ended up making something which is very austere and hopefully what I think was truthful to the experience of what Gallipoli was actually like. I might show a clip from it actually, and I don't know if anyone's seen it. I mean, one of the myths that we're talking about, that idea of mateship and Anzac spirit, I didn't when I was approached about Gallipoli, I had no interest in doing it, like kind of zero, because I have the same reaction when I hear Gallipoli. When I hear anything about it, I go, oh, really? Like I'm not into that. It's the beginning of the end as far as I'm concerned.
Did someone come to you with a script that had been written, or was it in its infancy, or were you sort of like a gun for hire, or was it kind of in the...
No, I'd worked a lot with John Edwards and Imo Banks and Robert Connolly, who produced it, and they kind of offered it to me. I'd just done series 1 of Puberty Blues, and we were about to do series 2, and we were just talking about it, and I said, "Do you want to do it? How do you want to do it?" And I don't think there was scripts then. I think there was definitely a treatment, and there was the book, which 600-page document, which I started to read. Yeah, and you'd go to these, you'd drive around the battlefields and there's people growing tomatoes, and we stopped there to film them because we were trying to shoot something there, and they were pulling bullets out of the ground. It's just full on. So yeah, I feel like I'm getting my documentary fix elsewhere, inserting it when I can. I think what else I want to show you. So I did a series or 2 series, Puberty Blues, which is a lot lighter in tone. Although we were really hell-bent on making that show. I don't know if has anyone read the book Puberty Blues. It's quite different to what you think it is, and I think a lot of people perceived Puberty Blues as a kid's show almost, or a teenager show. Has anyone seen it? Yeah. So that was a book that, I mean, it's sort of true. That was, for me, I was making an adaptation of a real event. We took the original novel, the novella, which is like this 90-page diary that when you read it, you're like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to read this stuff. And we made it into, we did 2 series, and tried to really find that balance between it being dark and being quite confronting at times, but also having fun with it. And it was something I learned actually working a lot with John Edwards and Imogen Banks. I like heavy stuff, and my go-to place is to make dark tone material. But one of the most valuable lessons I've learned is that wherever you can is to spike your work with humour. And you were saying last night, you said, people laugh when that guy says, I want to leave something... A legacy, yeah. I was thinking about that. I don't think people are laughing at it because they think he's funny. It's just a funny thing. And I think if you hold tension, you're looking for opportunities to release. And I think that moment, you just want something that's not... You just want to, you can make things that aren't funny really funny if you have tension before it. Yeah. I think it's one of those moments. So we were Puberty Blues is a real exercise in juggling tone, but also trying to doing that in trying to create a very hyper-realistic world, almost like a, like the way that that Emma and I would direct the show. It's almost documentary-like in the sense that we definitely had a manifesto for this. For me, I never raised the camera above. I don't know if you know the kid David, who was the little brother in the show. The camera for me never gets above his head in height. Because for me to see the world, I would have been 7 or 8 at the time when Puberty Blues, when we set the show, I was 7 in real life. So I thought everything I'm about to see, I want to see from a 7-year-old's point of view. So the camera was always here. It got lower with them, but it never got higher than what it needed to be. And I think also it was trying to find a point of view, particularly because there's a lot of sexual content amongst, in theory, underage kids, that we never wanted it to eroticize it. So I thought, because it would just be weird and it would get away from the reason why we're showing it as opposed to just showing it for titillation. So I thought if I view everything, even the sexual content, the way that a small child, like a 7-year-old, would view that stuff, it all of a sudden becomes about human behaviour and about almost like an alien observing and not understanding, not putting adult context onto things. So it was, it was a really amazing show to work on, and I always sort of joke, like if I could snap my fingers and live anywhere, I'd live in Puberty Blues world. Maybe I'll show a sequence, then I'll, like with a documentary mind headset, because essentially that's how I view everything. Like even though I'm, done World War I epics and heightened, romantic drama and stuff like that, I'm still always thinking about it from a documentary point of view. Like I will rarely put a camera somewhere where a documentary camera person wouldn't be. I'd never treat, I'd kind of treat actors as real people. Not that I get all method and say like you have to be that person all the time. But I'll show you a clip and then it's quite a simple clip. There's nothing overly dramatic happening. But when I think about Puberty Blues, I'll show you 2 clips actually. I'll show you this one first. But these are the ones I always think, these are the ones I feel like we got it, where I got it. I don't know whether you think I'll get it, but this is, for me, where I got it.
Hey, who am I? You ready? Root me, Nathan said root me. I'll give you a haircut if you root me. Shut up, Vicky. I'm your mum. Last weekend it was so funny. Root me, Nathan said root me. Grow up, Vicky. Push me and get me fish face mole and I'll smash you right out of your tits.
If you didn't throw your drink in, I would.
Thanks.
The moment's ended, Bruce. Everyone's gone. You're standing there, there's you, the only one left. Help us, Bruce, can you? You're our only hope. I need to get that dirty old head up, eh?
Oi! Danny!
Piss off! You can't come around here.
Don't make you fuck.
Talking about your slut mate.
Wanna fight?
Yeah?
Can't hit a girl.
Fucking hit her.
We're coming anyway.
Piss off, Hennessy. Piss off.
Okay. So I guess what I see my job as a director on something like that is to be invisible. I don't want the audience to think that anyone has actually designed that we've chosen those locations, that we've, dressed an old oyster shack, that we've given those guys props that we've put, all that sort of stuff. I just don't want to feel like I'm there. So it's trying to remain invisible. So the way that I approach that stuff is to try and get the actors there a bit earlier, and you do a line reading, and you just say, let's just read the lines. So at least we'll hear the lines are said out loud, and then once they're said out loud, you just ignore, say, the girls on the rocks. It's nothing special about that scene other than I think there's something cool about the scene, and I'm trying to think that right was going to. But anyway, you just watch them, and generally whatever they do when they're just hanging around, when everyone's arriving to shoot the scene, that's what I end up shooting. So if you put a couple of 16-year-olds along near a rock fence, I'm interested in the background. Like, no, it's got a great ambience and a cool feel. We did decide to shoot it at dusk, and that there's an elongated sequence over dusk that we did shoot over 2 dusks. And there's a whole other thing I talk about how you shoot at dusk and get a whole lot shot very quickly. But you just, like, those girls kind of did that. They just sort of ended up walking along the rocks. So you go, okay, well, this is something that those kids are going to do anyway. And then you start blocking the scene, and you say, okay, well, maybe you should just walk along the rocks. And they just do it. And they do it in a way that they've already discovered how they're doing it. You're not forcing them to do something that you didn't want them to do, or that they would go like, oh, shit, he wants us to sit in the gutter. We wouldn't sit in the gutter here. I'm trying to think of a right way of doing something very simple here, but...
Hence the no storyboarding.
No storyboarding ever.
Ahead of time, because you then start...
Yeah.
But sort of in the script, it would have said, okay, external, dusk.
Yeah.
Girls walking, but not...
Wouldn't have said group of girls... Yeah. No, it's a bit different with... like, I could show you the photograph of that location that we discovered elsewhere. So generally with Puberty Blues, because it's set in a real place, like the story was set in Cronulla, we made it all in Cronulla. I'm not from Cronulla. So I spent a few weeks at least just travelling down there every weekend, every moment I could, and just photographing the hell out of it. And going to where I would be drawn to as, trying to think, if I was a teenager, where would I go? Or looking where teenagers were hanging out, or where people were parking cars, and trying to, finding like the kid world, not the adult world of what that area is, Kurnell and stuff. So as far as the location goes, I could show you the location photo. So when we're scripting, or when we're scheduling, it may not have said by the water, like along a brick wall. I just go, I know the place. So we put that on the table, and we set that scene there. And then we try and group some other scenes around that location as well. And we definitely would say that it was dusk, because shooting stuff at dusk is very incredibly difficult, because it's magic hour, magic 15 minutes. So there's a lot of planning that goes into that, and you have to try and you got to have a well-oiled machine before you can start doing stuff like that. But it's incredibly possible. In fact, the scene of like the little fishing deck where they're chopping up and fishing. There's a lot more coverage going on there. Like, we would have had to have shot that scene 3 or 4 times to get all the elements, and I can watch it now, but I can see the light fading and jumping back up and fading, and there's a bit of grading involved and stuff. But what I like about that, in a very documentary way, is that you have to get it. Like, no one's gonna, like, if the light's going, you have to get it. So really, it's about winding actors up, throwing them in there, and just rolling on it, and trying to conjure up an energy or a spirit of that scene, rather than being too, right, we're going to shoot this and we're going to shoot that and we're going to shoot this. And if you do that, even if you look at it, even if you're working like crazy, 15 minutes per setup, 4 setups, that's an hour. You don't shoot at dusk. So you have to plan a lot more, but you do it in a very intuitive way, and knowing exactly what you need.